So now it is my great honor to introduce to everybody Ambassador Ido Aharoni, who has been such a strong supporter and friend of Soroka. He is one of Israel's shining stars of diplomacy. He is one of its most creative and innovative proponents and has served Israel so well, and we thank him so much for coming here to Miami today on our behalf, and thank you. Here.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for this great introduction, and I also see that my dear friend Ken Abramowitz just walked in. So here he is. Ken just came in from New York. Is one of the reasons why we have this event here tonight. So I'm very, very happy to be here, and especially to be in the presence of my dear friend and colleague, Consul General Chaim Shacham. Chaim is a true friend. I've known him for many, many years. Every time I come to Florida, I can count on Chaim to welcome me warmly and to truthfully and genuinely be a strategic partner in the conversation that we're trying to have about Israel. I'd like to congratulate Cherna Moskowitz for the honor tonight, and to thank you for all that you've done for the State of Israel and for the Jewish people. Thank you so much. You know, these are fateful days for the free world. These are fateful days for the Jewish people. These are fateful days for the State of Israel. The region we live in, the Middle East, is falling apart. Countries are disintegrating in front of our eyes. Anti-Semitism and bigotry is plaguing the Western world. We just saw what happened in Paris. But people have short memory. It happened before in other countries as well. And we just saw this amazing presentation about the performance of Soroka during the 52 days of intense fighting between Israel and Hamas. And wherever I go, people express concern with Israel's future. People express concern with the future of our people. And so I decided in the few minutes that I have to try and give you reasons to be optimistic. More specifically, I'd like to mention 4 reasons for you to be very optimistic about Israel's future and about the future of the Jewish people. And I think that the Soroka Hospital, as the most important hospital of Israel's southern regions, is tightly related to at least 2 of those 4 reasons. The first, Israel's perhaps most impressive miracle. Israel has many achievements in 67 years of existence. But perhaps its most impressive accomplishment is what we were able to do in the area of what we call immigrant absorption. Let me give you a few numbers and you'll understand why it is so tightly related to the future of Soroka. When the State of Israel was founded, there were 650,000 people living in the land of Israel. 650,000. 220,000 of them lived in the southern region of the State of Israel. That was the division. Today, we are 8.4 million strong, and according to the most conservative projection, by the year 2050, we're going to be 16 million strong. Now, the government's most recent decisions to move the major facilities of the Israel Defense Forces to the Negev, to move Israel's version of the NSA, Unit 8200, to the Negev, to create with a massive governmental investment the cyber center of our part of the world in Beersheba. And of course, add to that the strength of the university, the strength of the hospital, the strength of Beersheba as an urban center. And you can already understand, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand, that Soroka Hospital unquestionably is going to become Israel's most important and largest hospital in the future. There's no question about it. Those 16 million people, many of them will live in the Negev, simply because there'll be no other choice for them. The Negev will become the new future, the new frontier for the state of Israel. Second reason to be very optimistic. You know, our former president, Shimon Peres, always used to complain that the Holy Land, the land of Israel, is known as the land of milk and honey, but not as the land of oil and money. Well, that's changing too. Thanks to huge deposits of natural gas and oil that were discovered in the Mediterranean, Israel's energy future is secured. Not only that, we will find ourselves, believe it or not, the tiny state of Israel, we will find ourselves in a position to become exporters of natural gas. I cannot overestimate the importance of self-sufficiency and independence in the area of energy. Third reason to be optimistic, again, has a lot to do with the climate and the geography of the land of Israel. When the state of Israel was founded, the founding fathers of Zionism were concerned with many things, but there was one issue that concerned them the most. More than the Arabs, more than the Iranians, more than the terrorists, more than any other issue. And that issue was lack of water. Lack of water was perceived as the number one existential threat to the tiny state of Israel. Some 2 decades ago, Israeli governments made a decision to invest in infrastructure that will allow us to produce water, to pump water from the Mediterranean, process the water through desalination, and then use it, consume the water. My friends, today, 2015, it's been 3 years since Israel became independent and self-sufficient in the area of water consumption. Israel produces all the water that it needs. That's a miracle. And the fourth reason, and Soroka again is a very big part of that, the fourth reason why you should all be very optimistic about Israel's future, about the future of Soroka, about the future of the Negev. It is already well established among economists and people that study societies that the number one economic resource today in the world, the number one element that can predict success of societies and economies, is not natural resources, it's not oil, it's not gold. It's something that is completely intangible. And that is creativity. Creativity. Societies and economies that know how to nurture creativity are the ones that are going to have the edge. And thank God, it's part of our DNA as a people. We are given permission in our culture, in our religion, in our tradition, in our heritage. We are given permission to ask questions, to argue. The entire Talmudic tradition is based on arguments. That's how you advance. That's how you acquire knowledge. I studied in high school that the single most important phrase in science is made of 2 words. So what? Now, this very argumentative nature of our people, of our culture, of our society in Israel, and I admit it makes it sometimes very difficult to do business with us. You know, I know that because I have to deal with Israelis too every once in a while. But the upside of it is that this argumentative nature of our people is the engine behind the tremendous degree of creativity that you will find in Israel. And creativity is manifested not just in science. And it is true that you have more patents registered per capita in Israel than any other nation. It is true that more scientific papers are published in Israel per every 10,000 people, more than any other nation. It is true that we have more startups traded on NASDAQ than Japan and Germany combined. I think we're third only to US and Canada. And it's true that Israelis read more books per capita than any other nation, that Israelis buy more theater tickets per capita than any other nation. And I can go on and on and on. But creativity is not just manifested in science. Creativity exists in all walks of life. So here you have 4 reasons to be extremely optimistic for the future. Israel is going to grow leaps and bounds in the future, with its future secured in the fields of energy and water, 2 huge elements, and of course, with our ability to nurture creativity and innovation, we will continue to have the edge. And Soroka Hospital, as the centerpiece of the up-and-coming region of the country, the Negev, will play an extremely important role in this takeoff. So my friends, we're at the very beginning of the takeoff of the State of Israel and the Israeli society. By partnering with the Soroka Hospital, you're partnering with an organization that has a bright future, has a glorious past, and critically important present.